Hi everybody, welcome to my 9th video. Can you believe it? On one single subject, CBD oil. It's the latest darling in herbal supplements and it's gotten a lot of attention and is very popular. So I have devoted over 2 months to researching this cannabis component for you guys, and I've divided it into a lot of subtopics. So this was supposed to be the last video, and alas, in typical Dr. Sarah style, I got carried away again, and I have another continuation for next week, which will hopefully, I am planning to be the final review of the clinical efficacy on CBD oil and what's been shown in clinical trials in the 3 main areas of pain, neurological disorders, and mood. Before we get started with today's topic, which I felt like I had to expand on ethically, because as I was compiling the reviews of clinical studies, there were 2 themes that kept popping up. And I didn't want you guys to be bamboozled by blogs and media hype that was either upplaying or downplaying certain clinical trials or evidence that weren't necessarily stating the correct findings based on what was being done in the experiment. So I will get into that. But first, I just want to point out to you that I did do previous videos that you can look at, and for your safety, you might want to definitely check out some of the links that I've provided on the post that will be linked to this video, because it goes through all of the various factors to consider when you're deciding if CBD oil or any therapeutic modality is right for you. So I've already went through CBD's precautions, regulations, its current medical indications as a drug, the mechanisms of actions of CBD as well as the other cannabinoids, and how they affect the endocannabinoid system, which is this very important regulator of various activities in our body. The entourage effect, which is the benefits of all of the cannabis compounds, including the essential oil components, the terpenes, that are present in the plant, how they synergize together and maybe are more beneficial or create more of overall harmony effect than just isolating one component. And then last week I really dove deep into that and what the studies say based on that versus an isolate. So if you haven't seen that or haven't reviewed those, you might want to check those out, and also make sure that you keep in mind that everybody is different. Everyone has their own biochemical individuality, that cure-alls have caveats. Anything that's claimed a cure-all, remember there's also side effects. It comes with pitfalls, interactions, and some dangers with how things are being manufactured, which brings us to make sure you have a good quality and standardized product. That being said, what are the 2 things or the themes, bringing it back to what I discussed this week, that stopped me in my tracks from just releasing my short review on some of the meta-analysis? So a meta-analysis is like a review, a statistical review of the reviews of the trials or experiments of a certain subject. So those are really important ones to look at. So I looked at those, and as I was going to report them, what were the 2 things that stopped me in my track? Well, some of the blogs and some of the claims were misleading because the authors weren't pointing out that there's differences found in petri dishes, animal trials, and human studies with CBD, and the importance of the delivery methods, right? There's various ways that you can use CBD oil, whether it be through vaping, whether it be through orally. They've even found topical applications, sprays, yes, there's cannabinoid receptors in our skin, which is cool, and there's actually other cannabinoids, which actually they're studying that aren't CBD that's modulating some skin stuff. So I saw that research. That's cool. That's a side note. But these delivery dosages and quality standards are also going to affect what was found in the studies, and also how CBD oil will impact you. So I wanted to go through these, and going through these two themes, you'll also see what some of the clinical reviews say about CBD oil as well. So I'm kind of also going through some of those studies as well for you guys. So the differences between human and non-clinical trials with CBD. So non-clinical trials are the Petri dish studies, the rodent studies, the animal studies, something that isn't human. And remember that when you're reading something about an effect, it's important to keep that in mind, because there's differences in pharmacological effects between how a substance acts in a Petri plastic dish, in rats, and in humans. And I pointed this out with essential oils, and it's true for CBD, it's true for almost anything. Now, not to say that these studies aren't important, because they give us clues on mechanisms, and there are similarities as well, but it isn't a perfect association, right? There's some caveats to that. There was a really good study that showed that, you know, two different components had different pharmacological effects in a Petri dish, in a rodent, and then they were proclaiming this could also mean that it has different effects in human. So we needed more clinical trials before jumping to conclusions. And another aspect of this differences is that there are many individual targets of one compound, and the targets that they reach in different mammals could differ than what they reach in humans. So rodents and mammals and humans might not necessarily be equivalent when we look at mechanisms of actions and what receptors they hit. And we know that CBD has been studied to hit a lot of different receptors, which I went over in the last video. So another factor is because of the rodents, the way that they metabolize different things. Sometimes they're using really large doses or concentrations, or using IVs or gavage or ways to get the product into the rat that humans wouldn't use. And this can affect delivery and the levels in the blood system. So that's a lot, right? But I did cite studies to just have you guys take a breather and let you know that even though I'm being precautious, overall the safety studies for CBD are pretty convincing and good. But remember, it is a drug. It isn't anything, even essential oils, which are, very safe. It's important to keep this stuff in mind in case your body is off and, you're not working with a practitioner who can monitor it. It's important to keep these things in mind, right? That there can be a reaction, and you might not know that it's related to, quote, something natural, when even natural things have an effect. So natural does not mean without effect or without harm. It means it's from a natural substance. Also, that little study that did have the literature review of safety, it did report that CBD was used in a majority of the studies for epilepsy, psychiatric disorders. So it kind of shows you what they're using it for in studies right now. They also said that they still need more clinical research on how people metabolize it and what the differences could be, which brings us to more on the dosage, timing, and quality standards of CBD, which I went back into. Now, I already talked about precautions and drug interactions in the first video that I did, and the Wild West of quality standards. But as far as dosage, there's been a U-shaped curve, which means there's an effect up to a certain point, and then the effect dwindles. So you kind of want to find that Goldilocks effect. And sometimes when you're combining CBD, there was an abstract I found where, actually I read the whole study, but where they found that the CBD at certain doses actually made the additive effect with THC, and then at other doses it kind of offsetted the effect of CBD. So a lot of people think if you use CBD with THC that you're not going to get as much of the psychoactive components, and I think dosing is a factor for that. Also, they've found that as far as in humans, some of the trials noted in a summary that they were better than THC alone. Some of them noticed THC was better than CBD. Some of them reported additive, canceling, or worsening effects. So that's a summary of kind of what the different receptors hit and possibly why, right? Because we still aren't 100% clear of mechanism of actions basically for anyone because everybody's different, but CBD is still being studied. So I did have a good excerpt from one of the studies of a 2002 article, which went into kind of a summary of these interactions with different cannabinoids. And remember, the video that I did on the entourage effect also had those tables of what the other cannabinoids do, right? Like there's CBG, there's different ones, not just THC, that have additive effects too, that can be anti-inflammatory, analgesic. So that's why a lot of practitioners are leading us with recommending the full spectrum hemp product, because the balancing effects, and at least you don't have to worry so much about getting the dosage as correct as you do as if you use an isolate, because all of the components will balance it out. That's what some of the researchers have said with the webinars that I've listened to who have been using this product with their clients for years and have a lot of experience, way more than I do. I'm kind of just showing you the research side of it and what my clients have reported that have already used it, that have come to me and reported that, you know, of course I get the unicorn, so a lot of times it hasn't worked for them. So here's the summary so far, okay? So if you totally are glazed over by everything I just said, here's the bottom line. The effects of CBD are contingent on the dosage, the levels of THC and other interacting compounds present, and your individual biochemistry and environmental factors that are going to have an effect on how the compound is processed in your particular body. That when you're reading studies from clinical trials or preclinical trials, whether they be in petri dishes or rodents, keep in mind that if a blog is stating that this was found to be anti-inflammatory and reduce pain, was it in rodents or was it in humans? And just keep that in mind, that it's a possible mechanism of action, but it might not necessarily correlate to that effect in humans. Overall safety, you're pretty good with CBD oil. Again, I'm not your doctor, so you know your body, your healthcare practitioner does. I'm not recommending, I'm not saying it's a horrible thing to use CBD, but I can't give you a yes or no answer for you. That's something you have to talk to with your healthcare practitioner. And then the final point is, many practitioners are advocating for full spectrum because it makes dosing and it makes prescribing a heck of a lot easier and it's more harmonious. So it's complicated, right? That being said, a lot of people have reported some good benefits of it. So these are just some things to keep in mind. I think it's important that you know what's going on, because I always tell someone something works until it doesn't. So even if you're getting a good effect, be aware that, you know, your body can change, who you're getting it from, the manufacturing can change, and you might want to look into other options. I hope this is helpful, and there'll be another video coming up. I hope it'll be the last one. I might be taking a little break after this because I'm a little cross-eyed with cannabinoids, and I want to get some stuff running on my site as far as some new opportunities I'm going to be running, specifically focusing in the areas of women's health, mood, and digestion, and using essential oils and how I use them clinically, and kind of sharing that with you guys so that you have a safe tool in your hand. And also are aware of how to use them responsibly from clinical experience. So that'll be cool. So stay on the lookout for that. Okay? And if you have any questions or comments or feedback, let me know if you even like these videos. Please post your comments on my blog, and I will read them and comment back if it so requires. All right, have a great rest of your morning, night, or wherever the time may find you. Talk to you soon.